Good morning and welcome to the Westernacher webinar WM to EWM, or Make the Leap to WM to EWM. Thanks very much for joining us today. We will be covering the core topic today, along with some case studies from actual clients and how we've supported them in making that leap to EWM. Today we have both Deborah, who is our Warehousing Practice Director for the UK, and we have Anders, who is our Warehousing Practice Director in the Nordics, who will both be presenting for us today. At the end, we'll have a Q&A session, so any questions anybody has along the way, please write them in the chat, and we'll do our best to cover all of those at the end of the presentation. This particular event is a warm-up event. We have a large summit event in the Belfry in Birmingham, so we're hoping that you've registered to join that as well on the 24th of April, so we'll talk a bit more about that at the end of the presentation as well. If we just move to the next slide. So very briefly, anybody that doesn't know who Westernacher are, we're a supply chain consultancy specializing in SAP and all digital supply chain topics, so warehousing, transportation, planning, and all the modules within that supply chain suite. This isn't a sales webinar, this is very much an informative learning journey, so I won't say much more on Westernacher today. We'll pass straight over to our first presenter, which is Anders.
Thank you very much. Welcome to you all. I'm really happy to have you here so close to Easter. As already mentioned, we have quite an intense agenda, talking about the move from WM to EWM. These are the topics we're going to focus on, and as mentioned, we're going to have a case study also with one of our clients, Grundfos in the end. But let's head straight into it. So why are we talking about this subject? Well, it's a burning platform. WM will run out of support in 2027. Potentially some functionality will be decommissioned. New features will not be available, and of course, there's a big drive now to move to the cloud.
It's a really inflexible platform for a lot of customers, is WM. A lot of them have had to build a lot of custom enhancements just to manage their day-to-day business requirements and operations, and that brings with it a lack of robustness. There's also a risk concerning knowledge within the businesses, because people move on, and there's an inability to support it moving forwards in a lot of cases, and there's very limited mobile operations. It's also not a very nice user interface. It's not very intuitive. There's lots and lots of Z transactions, and it brings with it a lack of ability to grow and adapt and maintain efficiencies that you need for those market pressures that we all have on us these days. It doesn't easily support complex warehouse operations either, and it's difficult to integrate to modern automation or IoT. And due to the table sizes, then performance can be a little bit on the worse side. So what are the options moving away from WM? Well, firstly, there's the compatibility packs. SAP have delivered these to allow you to move to S4 and keep on using WM on S4 HANA if that's what your strategic plan is. But they only have temporary user rights, and licensing will be withdrawn at the end of 2027. So whilst that could enable you to move to S4 in a very short timeline, it's a very short-term option, and it doesn't bring you a lot of great benefit within your warehousing operation. SAP have given us stockroom management, and this enables WM customers to do light warehouse operations on SAP S4HANA beyond 2027. And something that might be attractive is that the license is included as part of the S4 enterprise management component. It is WM, but it's without complex components that a lot of companies need, such as wave management, cross-docking, and those other really good things that we all like. And crucially, it will never be developed by SAP. They are not going to add on to it. And it also cannot be deployed in a decentralized mode. So we've now got a public cloud version of EWM. It's Fiori-based and it's hosted on SAP's cloud infrastructure, and they take over the maintenance and update of it. So that's upgrades and new feature packs that are released. It's available as embedded with public cloud ERP, and they have a plan to make it available as a decentralized system connected to a SAP ERP, but crucially, it cannot be connected to a non-SAP ERP system. Patches and upgrades and everything are pre-planned, and they are delivered by SAP. And one thing that's important to note, it's got leaner functionality. It's targeted at mid-sized businesses with quite simple warehousing operations and requirements, and there's very, very limited support for anything like automation. And it's based on a clean core concept where that you wouldn't do any development. So any development that you might do, you'd have to have BTP to be able to manage those requirements. And then the one that we're going to talk about today, or go into in a bit more depth, is the private cloud version of EWM. Now, this is available as embedded or decentralized version, and that means that it sits on a separate box. It is a best of breed warehouse management system. It's got much, much richer functionality than WM, and it's totally aimed at complex warehouse operations. New functionality releases are currently delivered on a biannual basis, but they're possibly moving to a major release every 2 years with kind of 3 smaller feature packs in between. There's a full suite of best practice business processes, and that is what SAP are really, really driving towards, is trying to bring out best practice and standardization. And with that, it's got greater functionality and reduces the need for custom developments, and the way that you do custom developments, if you need any, has totally changed. There are different licensing options depending on the functionality required. But something that to note is that an upgrade from WM to EWM is not an option, but it does bring an opportunity to reevaluate your processes and do some process re-engineering. But there are migration tools that do exist to help you actually make that change. So what do you need to think about if you're going to move from WM to EWM? You need to think about where you need to be and where you want to be, and where are you crucially now. And don't just think about WM and EWM and how you'd implement EWM. Think about your full landscape. Does it include new functionality? Yard logistics is something that SAP are developing quite keenly at the moment, and that is the link between EWM and TM. So do you need a new transport management system, and are you going to move to a new transport management system? These have got to be taken into account. Business benefits as well are very important. What will give you the most business benefit and ROI from you making this move? And the risk. Not all of us have done a go live. None of us like having a risky go live. And so if there is a risk, is it a manageable or acceptable risk? And how would you mitigate that risk going forwards? Think about your warehousing footprint. Are there any changes planned in the business that need to be dealt with and managed within the programme that will mean that your outlook changes? Could you have new customers? May you be consolidating some of your distribution centres, taking on new business that means you need a new greenfield site, stuff like that. And time restrictions. Do you have a hard stop? And if so, what can be realistically achieved by that deadline that you've got? And also think about a phased approach. That might suit your business better, doing a pilot first and then getting that stable and then moving and rolling out a lot of your other warehouses if you have multiple warehouses. And then priority. Sometimes we find with customers that one part of their program has a really urgent need to actually change, and it's usually down to drivers from business requirements, and it's need to work out how you could deliver that first. And then new technology. Is the change needed to enable new technology, new integration, automation versus human resources? There have been warnings that we will have a reduced workforce in the not too distant future. So how can we plan for that, and what can we do to bolster that? And then other things to consider. So if you decide that S4 is going to go first, what is your plan for keeping your warehouses running on WM when S4 goes live? Are you going to bring them into S4 using the compatibility packs? Involve any teams that will integrate closely to S4 if you go with it first, like yard logistics, transport management, EWM, and make sure that no doors are closed. Look at the structures within them and what data you might want to transfer between them, so that you make sure that you've future-proofed your solution. And look at your business partner setup, and do some data cleansing as well. And then when it comes to EWM, if you go with EWM first, are you going to go in the cloud or on-premise? SAP will really, really drive towards the cloud. And do you need a high availability system? Does that mean that you make a decision between going embedded or decentralized? And that brings in itself license implications, because decentralized attracts the advanced license, but there's some functionality within embedded that brings the advanced license as well, like wave management and cross-docking, and also the amount of delivery lines that you have each day. And then are you going to take the opportunity, and it's a good opportunity, to do some business process re-engineering? And then which site would go first? Do you take your least risk or the most critical one? The smallest or the more complex, or the one that's small and has the most breadth of processes that you will need to use? And then how do you migrate and at the same time maintain your customer services levels that are very, very important for your customers? It's very important that you decide your approach up front and stick to it. Are you going to stick to standard processes, which is always recommended by SAP? Are you going to use template processes and make sure that every warehouse does something, the same thing, the same? But communicate that approach well to all your internal stakeholders, so that when they go to your business blueprint workshops, they are not asking for blue sky. Don't forget about your external stakeholders, your vendors and your customers, and manage those. And then change management is one of the most important things. You can design or have the best system in the world, but if you haven't communicated that change to your users, then the implementation of it may not go that well. Sizing, be realistic about your sizing, be realistic about what your operations are going to perform, and look at your performance SLAs with your hosting partner and make sure that you're covered there. And then don't forget archiving. It's always an afterthought for a lot of customers, but it's truly important. And remember, one size doesn't fit all.
Yes, I think what we're going to talk about today, and what SAP is talking a lot about, is the digital supply chain. We believe that this is a good picture to describe the digital supply chain that we all strive for, that will enable a seamless flow with connected processes and data across business entity and partners. If we zoom in on the warehouse part of the digital supply chain, we can ask ourselves these questions concerning where we are and what is available on SAP EWM. For example, are your warehousing operations leveraging the power of automation, robots, and drones? There are strong automation frameworks and robot frameworks available to enable this already on SAP EWM. As we see, the warehouse automation becomes more seamless and connected end-to-end in the warehouse. From being focused on one area to of the warehouse, it is more seamless from inbound to outbound with different types of automation, robotics, and IoT that is now fully connected. We can already now enable drones managing the inventory counting. it is already available. And number 2, are your warehouse operation leveraging the power of insights, AI, and machine learning? Real-time EWM insights can be enabled with SAP Analytics Cloud. We can enable AI and machine learning with B2P. For the warehouse reporting, we have been looking in the rearview mirror, making decision on all data. Now we can, with real-time data, see the present, and with simple AI machine learning, we can simulate and predict the future. Another question, is your warehouse operation connected in a seamless way towards yard and transportation planning and execution? In this area, SAP has an impressive roadmap with advanced shipping and receiving, with yard logistics and new cross-docking features. On S4, your warehouse can be connected in a seamless way with the yard and transportation management, building efficient, effective end-to-end processes, saving unnecessary costs due to long unnecessary waiting times and low fill rates. And also, are AI and vision and voice already turning your warehouse teams into superhumans yet? Vision connected to Google machine learning latest features is available. In our warehouses, we have gone from paper to RF, as we know, voice picking, and now we are also enabling the use of glasses with vision and voice picking, and to the realities on our connected tablets. What is next is a good question to keep in mind. And are your warehouse operation connected directly to the customer journey, the personalization? The need to get the warehouse more connected to our sales and customers here. We need to be able to build a transparent customer journey and enable personalization based on customer demand during the warehouse and logistic process. Let's go in and do a little bit of a deep dive into SAP EWM. As you can see on the right side here, there's a lot of capabilities available. SAP EWM is a redesign from bottom up. It is not an extension of SAP WM. As you will see in the coming slide, SAP EWM is a process layout-driven WMS that has all capabilities and features to serve all industries, easy to integrate to the latest automation, robotics, and IoT, and well connected to the yard and transportation, production, and sales to build a future-proven digital supply chain. And I think that's important to state that SAP is also highly investing now in this to really enable a digital supply chain end-to-end.
Let's have a look at inbound. As you can see, SAP EWM is process or layout driven. It's got all the needed capabilities to serve your industry processes. And by configuring processes, you can route different products depending on their different requirements. And some might need deconsolidation, some might need green laning because you trust the vendor. You can configure a different process and attach that process to different operations, and that will lead your operators down the right path. There's no limit on the amount of put-away strategies that you can have in EWM, and there's no limit on the amount of bin types. So everything's really, really flexible, and a lot of stuff that was very difficult within WM is now quite easy, like cross-docking, work centre determination, and returns handling and stuff like that. When we come to storage and operations, there's a lot of stuff on here that you couldn't do in WM. So physical inventory, it doesn't allow you in WM to actually find stock in your warehouse and easily add that to a bin. That's a piece of cake in EWM. It's catered for. Handling unit management, they were a nightmare to take off a delivery, and when you unpacked a handling unit in a work centre somewhere, the stock would disappear. In EWM, stock is always somewhere. It is either in a bin or on a TU or on a resource, and it can always be found. And there's no more of those logical storage types. Everything is a proper storage type. in WM, you could only have one fixed bin for a product, and in EWM gives you the functionality to be able to have as many as you like. So for a fast-moving product, you could, if you wanted, have a fixed bin in every single aisle of your warehouse. And to support that, there's always good functionality around dynamic pick bins, so that you can flex how much you actually need just for a certain day and then clear them back into the reserve. WM wasn't process driven, but EWM is totally process driven and automatically creates onward tasks for you when you're actually carrying something out. So if we looked at kit to stock, that's driven from the ERP system, but you get your inbound and outbound deliveries created for you in EWM, and processes are attached to those deliveries that enable you to pick the stock that you're going to kit, take it to the work centre, kit it, and then put it away with a process-driven process or process-driven tasks that are created one after the other. And this leads operators to follow the right process rather than the wrong process all of the time. Thanks, Anders. And then we look at outbound. Again, this is process and layout driven and has all the capabilities to serve a really, really complex outbound operation. Again, there's no limit on picking strategies, and you can be flexible in building processes based on customer and product requirements. A product may need, because it's fragile, to go to a separate work centre and be wrapped differently and packaged differently. You can do that based on that product and still have it end at the same staging bay as the rest of the delivery. You can add in value-added services, QC checks for certain products or for certain customers. And of course, all of this is available on RF, and there's a whole suite of RF transactions that are very, very easily modifiable if you need to change a small field on them or change the order in which they appear or add a pop-up box or something like that, rather than having to design a new RF transaction from the ground up. Thanks, Anders.
So let's talk a bit about labor management. SAP EWM comes with strong labor management functionalities. This is normally, as we know, a functionality many companies struggle to build integrated and seamless between different functions today. A lot of developments in EWM, and also data may not be there to support it. With labor management in EWM, you can plan and simulate the need for labor. You have a strong workload monitoring functionality with exception management and alerts, and also analytics and reporting cross warehouses, some which can be transferred between labor management and your HCM.
When it comes to reporting, EWM is a lot more advanced than WM was. The reporting is better, it's clearer, and it's visual based. So you can make something leap out in red if it hits a certain parameter, so that it grabs the attention of anybody looking at it. And this helps the operation to become more proactive than reactive, because they have much better information available at their fingertips.
Yes, and I think what is important to say also that there is a fair number of accelerators to be used by customers to accelerate the step towards a digital supply chain on SAP EWM. Since SAP EWM has been out for so long now, this has been enabled. The accelerators are built using standard SAP functionality and technology and can be used by the SAP customers seamless. Here we are showcasing our SAP EWM Analytics and Insight tool using SAP Analytics Cloud, where you have predefined warehouse KPI content and dashboard for SAP Data Warehouse Cloud. You can monitor timeless of warehouse operation. You monitor completion state of warehouse operations, integrated content for S/4HANA with embedded EWM and EWM decentralized. And you can have visibility across multiple EWM systems, including legacy data upload. And you also that this is configurable logic, and you can set the threshold on your own. There is also you can comment here, and you can use this dashboard in a good way in meetings between your warehouse personnel. So let's talk a bit about the business benefit as we see with SAP EWM and the information we got from our customer. On the next slide, we will see more of the matrix, but here you can see that an increase in customer service due to more efficient, effective, and quality-proven warehouse processes end-to-end. We can see also an increase in the possibility to standardize processes towards best practice cross warehouses to reap the benefit of synergies in both operation and support. With more efficient, effective, and quality-proven warehouse processes and a better control of stock, we can see a reduction in inventory and labor cost. As mentioned many times, the stock transparency in SAP EWM is on a totally different level than SAP WM. You will have full control of your stock. The flexibility that SAP EWM brings to the process modeling, that as Deborah explained before, that you can have different steps for different customers, for products, is fully flexible and configurable. This gives you the possibility to be more customer-centric in an efficient and effective way. And of course, some of all these positive effects then will of course give you the opportunity to improve the space utilization in the warehouse, also on how we manage batches and how we consolidate stock in a better way on SAP EWM.
Let's have a look at some of those facts and figures, because all of us love a good percentage, don't we? Some of the ones that leap out at me are stuff like a 30% increase in labour productivity. And this is not what we think, this is what value our customers are telling us that they are seeing. 50% less storage area and 30% costs saved. That's quite massive if you've got quite a huge operation. 25% increase in picking rates, loading and bin utilisation, and 100% increase in inventory accuracy. Let's be right about it. Stock is what we're all sending out and what we're storing. 100% increase in the accuracy of it is really, really good measurement. Thanks, Anders.
Yes, and let's now go into the case study then. So we will talk about the move Grundfos did when they went from SAP WM to EWM on S4. In this case study, we'll touch a bit on their SAP strategy and rollout plan, highlight a bit around the current SAP WM to get some perspective, discuss around what benefits they've seen this early in the rollout plan. And as we have been talking a lot about today, about SAP and industry best practices, and that SAP EWM can cater for this with only configuration and limited developments and stick to standard we discussed, I think it's important also to discuss a bit around it. How much did we really develop them to enable a template for Grundfos that has quite sophisticated processes? And also talk about the method we used and what was the success factors during our implementation. And then, of course, some information about the next step on our journey. So here are the bullet points for what we will go through when it comes to Grundfos. But first, not maybe all of you know about Grundfos, so let's start with some company facts. Grundfos is a global company with a revenue of 34 billion Danish crowns. Different exchange rate from day to day, but I guess you can almost divide it by 10 maybe to get the pound. They produce pumps and related systems and application and services. They have a global supply chain with production sites and distribution centers in all areas of the world. Their production plants are normally focused on one of these 4 divisions, as you can see below here. And all of them are in some way then part of this SAP EWM rollout that will happen. And it's a really interesting company to work with in this time with challenges towards our environment. The mission statement, we pioneer solutions to the world's water and climate challenges and improve quality of the life for people, I think is something we all can stand by. So let's talk a little bit about their SAP strategy. So Grundfos has done the lift to S4 and temporary solution now for WM with S4 on compatibility packs. Grundfos is really striving towards a future-proven digital supply chain on S4. utilizing SAP best practice and latest capabilities and feature. And of course, we really are looking into the roadmap SAP has. They also have some of their users are in the SAP groups to discuss the latest features with SAP. So they're very skilled in that. They have a strict focus to stick to standard, which of course is fantastic, as we talked about, because we also believe that SAP EWM, if you do it right, that's the key message you should send to your organization. SAP EWM, as they have today, has many own enhancements, lack of robustness, and of course there is a risk of losing knowledge due to all of these developments. And as for Grundfos also, they will try to reap the effect of the digital supply chain. They're also looking at to combine them to have a strong TM EWM template to support their warehouses. What are you doing? So the larger production sites and distribution centers will go from WM to embedded EWM. And at the same time, we're also looking at TM to go into embedded TM to replace Litra. Focus here is on distribution centers. You will also see there's a little bit different timeline, but in the end, these two, of course, will merge. There is also, according to current plan, for some smaller size, they plan to use stockroom management. So a little bit about Grundfos WM, just to set things into perspective. So as already mentioned, Grundfos has, as many other companies done, built a lot of enhancements in SAP WM. Small mini application for different processes areas to support business requirement, both globally, but also with local kind of deviation in these areas to secure efficient, effective processes. And these areas Grundfos has done enhancement for are very common in general at other companies. Maybe also you here in today's meeting can recognize some of them. If you look at the rollout plan then for Grundfos, we started with a production site, warehouse in Germany, which we believed had a critical mass of processes and the right amount of complexity needed to enable a strong global blueprint already at the first site. The ambition, the target was to build a pilot that is 90% fit to the next site, so that we know when we started a rollout, there could be minor things we need to develop for new processes, but there should be a strong fit. The second site that is currently going live is in UK, Sunderland. So if you hear any shouting from there, you know it's us being there. So far, it has been running very smooth. The next step is not official yet, but there has been a steady pipeline of warehouses to go on to the new global template of SAP EWM. And as you see, there's a global spread to this. As we will see in the method later, all at the first site, we started to discuss more involvement of Grundfos IT people in the SAP EWM solution. We wanted to build a strong receiver organization. We plan to enable an AMS service for Grundfos. We reduce it late in the project to one resource. In the end, Grundfos managed to support the solution on their own. And I think that says a lot about SAP EWM's potential. We also start to run projects in parallel. In these projects, we aim to staff with less consultants. And I think why, and add more Grundfos resources. And I think why we highlight this so much is just to reiterate that SAP EWM implementation does not have to be complicated and with go lives full of problem if you address these topics of building a strong receiving organization. I think two things we want to highlight before we go into the development we've done and the method is that we were dependent on the current S4 configuration. As we said, it was a lift, so there is certain topics we had to cater for that was not standard. And also, as we mentioned, the EWM and TM project have started, but they have different priority due to the business case of TM is a bit different than EWM. But sooner or later, then we will come together. So method, rolling out SAP EWM is actually a lot about method. It's important to align on the method between the customer and the implementation partner you choose as part of the preparation for the project. Based on experience in waterfall implementations and more recently in modern project implementation methodologies such as Agile, we have created our own best practice approach, combining elements of both, as you will see when I explain a bit here. And in this specific Westernacher Q method is highly efficient implementation methodology to bring quick result and fast return on investment. Our experience show that a combination of traditional waterfall method with Agile concept applies within the main stages, provides the best result when implementing standard software, which SAP EWM really are. This was the method we used them together with Grundfos. Some key takeaway in each phases. If we look at the define phase, we strong focus on creating a strong product organization. How we communicate and distribute information is key. Especially also now in Corona, that a lot of things are happening offsite on Teams. Important to focus on soft topic, expectation of resources, building a strong psychological safety between business and IT and implementation partners to enable to meet timeline. That you have project manager from both parties that has that focus. We can see that it's even more, as I just mentioned, now after COVID, when the trend is to run more projects over Teams with limited access to on-site meetings. These needed coffee discussions, of course, we have less of. If we look at the discovery phase, it's important to secure the right resources are involved, the one that understands SAP WM and the resources that has the future vision. Do not focus too much on build what you already have. Look into your future vision. Accept to be challenged by your implementation partner. Important, as we said, to have both IT and business involved. Test, I think this is also key. Test the decision-making process early. Can we make fast decisions? If not, discuss early how to manage before you create a huge list of open points and risk. Secure, we investigate all areas. It's not only about warehouse, it's a digital supply chain. So important we lift all stones. In the end of the discovery phase, we ran an EWM bootcamp for both the IT and business. This is important to build the right knowledge around SAP EWM processes, capabilities, and user interface. It's actually here where the change management really starts. Use the bootcamp to build a team that wants to stick to standard, that have seen SAP EWM UX transaction and can start to understand and envision how process will be configured and executed in SAP EWM. If you go into the design phase, the same thing here. Keep momentum with the resources involved is key, both IT and business. Now they have been boosted with the latest and greatest knowledge about SAP EWM from the bootcamp. So now we can start to utilize the sandbox to show standard SAP best practice process early to both business and IT. This is key. Seeing is believing. If we then go into development phase, same topic, resources, continue to work on that to secure the right resources. One thing that we really focus on is not to make life easy for us, is rather to secure quality, is a train-the-trainer approach. That we build strong super user early in the project, since we now are in that phase. And they will take the responsibility later for the end user training. That is crucial. In the development phase, we normally work in sprints. So now we're moving more into Agile with an agreed scope to secure we get more important work done early in the development phase. We also, at the end of each sprint, utilize show and tell sessions to show the final process towards IT and business resources, that they can see the full end-to-end process in SAP EWM. This method kind of secures that what we agree on in the solution early, and there has no surprise that will come up later in SAT and UAT, I think, towards our previous waterfall method. So this is really key. And deploy phase. Having set the standards in the early phases, important then to plan the SAT and UAT thoroughly in the end user training and secure the right competence are available on-site and off-site at go live. Take this discussion early. No surprises are allowed. So what did we develop? As we discussed before, we were expecting some problems due to the current process design in MMSD and S4. As you can see here, it's 4 different topics, quite small one. What we accepted to develop for these topics is in the integration or in EWM, but we have them already in the retrofit backlog to be looked at when we reach the critical mass of warehouse running on SAP EWM, and also when there is a plan to change processes in S4, not to be forgotten then. Also, we talked about LITA and TM. So LITA will later be replaced with TM, and then we have some topics then that will fit into the TM and will be later retrofitted. There were some topics with Grundfos business requirements yet did not have standard configurable features in SAP EWM, but they were really small development, easy managed with existing bodies and a few line of codes. So it's nothing, no big developments, very small ones. And of course, in all projects, all of this mentioned in the bottom here, the labels, the notes, and so forth, they never really come 100% out of the box. So there is development needed. But we all agree that we managed to build a global template with an acceptable amount of developments using SAP best practices on SAP EWM. So I will go through this a little bit quick since time is starting to run out for us. But we saw improvement in all areas when it comes to business processes. We haven't got any KPI measurement yet, but we're also looking into that to come back to that. But the general experience then from the user was that they had much more control in the inbound, and they have much more ability to have different put away strategies and also use the work center in a much better way. The staging to production got much more structure, better functionality for replenishment to production, and also to understand the location of the components at production. Fast goods receipt. I think one key also for Grundfos is serial number management, and that is on a total different level on EWM compared to WM. So now they have full control end to end, wherever things are happening, changes in the pallets, in the HUs, and so forth. We keep track in a good way on the serial number. Batch management, a huge improvement on how to manage that. Physical inventory, we have already mentioned that EWM is showing totally new features, capability compared to WM. A huge improvement in the PSA, and also finished goods area with serial number was a big change for them. And one thing they mentioned was really this pick-pack functionality on RF screens that we mentioned also a bit, how we can configure that easily. So they have much more one transaction that will give them the right information to do their job. And in loading, as we mentioned before, it has been quite simple with EWM that is much more layout process oriented. You will have full control of where stock are and how you manage it, how you see it in the system, and how it's reflected physically in your warehouse. Also some things compared to WM, the queues and resource management we've been talking a bit about, but this has been a big change for them and a big improvement on how they then can manage work and manage resources in the warehouse in a much better way to get the transparency. And one thing that you will see when you start to look into EWM is the fantastic warehouse monitor. And that has been given also one to Grundfos mention that is a super tool to manage the operation. It's basically one transaction where you have it all. It's totally interactive, and you can use it both for monitoring and planning and executing tasks. And you also have the freedom to configure it based on your need to make it simplistic, only the needful available for your warehouse supervisor or whoever using it. Looking a bit then on the project success factors, this stick to standard and have this vision of a digital supply chain and talk about that, I think it was the biggest success factor, because that has become kind of the leading statement. EWM Bootcamp, we see in all projects, but specifically in Grundfos, to run this, to get people to understand the capabilities, how EWM is working. It will be a big thing for both for success of the project, but the change management and also utilizing the receiving organization, building a strong receiving organization, having them with us in the change management, and doing those bootcamp in a good professional way, we think is key. and utilizing sandbox. There's so much you can do the sandbox now with standard practice, best practice you can set up and show to the client. One team, I guess you all agree to that, small team with strong resources, having the right knowledge and mandate for decision, I think was something we had together with Grundfos. Tight collaboration, we have mentioned that a lot, psychological safety and really building that one team, key. Show and tell session, it's about the method, and it can seem a little bit soft, but this is key to really show the solution early in the development phase and get everyone's insight, business IT, that you don't hand over paper between people and signing off requirement. You see the end-to-end process and you validate it in those sessions. Really important. Train approach I already mentioned. Build strong super users, important for the success. Focus on building strong receiving organization. A little bit repeating myself here. And of course, you don't have to choose Westernacher, but having an experienced partner, implementation partner with experience on SAP and industry best practice is important, because then you can lean on something, not going into a big change management and looking at the legacy, rather focus on the future. We believe is key together with Grundfos. And the same thing also, that you have a strong track record, because it is complicated. It doesn't have to be a heart surgery. It can be something else if you have the method and you have the fundamentals to achieve this. So this is a bit about the success factors, a little bit about the next steps. Rollout, as we said, we will continue to roll out globally. We're building the organization. We try to utilize Grundfos resources more. Lesson learned, continuous improvement. How can we enable faster timeline is key. Start to investigate EWM TM template is already ongoing. Potentially in some warehouses, go for more transportation-driven processes. And we also, together with them, since they also have users in this SAP user group, we're exploring advanced shipping and receiving. It's not really there yet, but we can see that the roadmap is looking fantastic in this area. New feature, explore features, capabilities, improve carrier label printing, RFID is we're looking into as well. How can we enable better processes in the warehouse with RFID? Focus more on insights and analytics. Now when you have everything available, you need to really start using it. And implement automation solution will be part of the next warehouse rollout. So 10 minutes left, and I think we managed to keep the time quite good. So time for questions.
Excellent, thanks both. So just a couple of questions, but if anybody has any further questions, please feel free to add them into the chat and we can ask the experts. The first question maybe I'll ask to Deborah. If an organization has a lot of specific transactions for their business that have been developed in WM, are they able to then take those through to EWM?
That's a really good question. I guess my question would be, why would you want to? There might be functionality, but that functionality is probably actually standard in EWM. And one thing to remember is that EWM is a redesign from the ground up. The table structures are totally different. The way that you code is totally different. You don't do table accesses. You look for GUIDs, product GUIDs and stuff like that. So, and there's functions to go away and grab the data. So I would reevaluate all the developments that you've got, and if that functionality is totally key to your business, then yes, by all means, if you need to do a development, but actually do it based on the EWM standard process rather than just dragging your old code with you.
Excellent, thanks very much, Deborah. A second question, which I'll direct to Anders. Are there any key topics that attracts the SAP Advanced License of EWM?
Ooh, maybe Deborah, can you?
I think we talked about a couple of those, didn't we, in the deck? But the cross-docking, that would, wave management, that will attract the advanced license. And then moving into a decentralized mode, that will attract the advanced license and the amount of delivery lines that you've got. There's quite a few, but there is a lot of help on the SAP website that tells you about those.
It's a little bit unique customer to customers. I think it's worth going through together.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we have no more questions to ask now. So I'll say thank you to everybody for joining the webinar. As I mentioned at the start, we have our Innovate to Elevate Warehousing Summit event. It's a face-to-face event in Birmingham on the 24th of April. This session is kind of an online warm-up to that on-site session in Birmingham. Really hope that you can all join. We'll make sure that everybody receives the registration link so you can review it and see if your diary will allow it. At that event, there'll be various topics that will be explored. It won't just be warehousing, it will be complementary elements around warehousing as well, such as yard logistics. There'll be analytics that we got a sneak peek from Anders earlier, what we call warehouse insights using SAP Analytics Cloud. There'll also be some topics around the connection with transportation management and the business network as well. So a huge amount of topics with a lot of client speakers and experts from both SAP and Westernacher as well. So with that, I'll just say thank you to everybody and hope you all have a really lovely Easter holiday. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Wilson.